Today on Killer Psychologist, we're unpacking a chilling suitcase murder out of Florida. In 2020, Sarah Boone zipped her boyfriend, George Torres Jr., inside a suitcase and left him to suffocate, initially claiming it was a drunken game of hide and seek gone wrong. However, disturbing videos found on her cell phone told a far more sinister story, one where she taunts him as he begs to be let out. Given that evidence, the jury needed only less than 2 hours to deliberate before delivering their verdict. And in December of 2024, Boone was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. So today, we're going to break down the psychological and forensic elements of this case. Was it premeditation, intoxication, or something darker? And today I'm joined with Lauren Conlin, somebody who has their pulse on true crime and pop culture, investigative journalist Lauren Conlin. You've seen her work on Fox Nation, where she's been covering the most high-profile cases right now, including Luigi Mangione and the Karen Reed trial. You can watch her on Karen Reed, Killer or Convenient Outsider, where she breaks down the complexities of that case. And Lauren also, I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she has time to be on so many podcasts and host her own shows and host her own podcast, the Outlier Podcast, where she's exploring everything from headline-making criminal cases to Hollywood scandals, bringing her signature storytelling and investigative approach. So if you want the latest on crime and pop culture, her platform is Pop Crime TV. It's the go-to source for the biggest stories in both worlds. Lauren, I'm excited to meet with you again.
Thank you. That was such a nice introduction. I'm so excited to be here with you. We had a great time. It's a weird thing to say we had a great time, but we had a great discussion on Pop Crime TV on my channel about Sarah Boone. I loved all of your insights about this woman who drives me crazy. I mean, truly drives me crazy.
Yeah, she is, she kind of told on herself when she took the stand and she tries to explain herself. And that didn't do her any favors.
No. And not only that, but she didn't take the time to actually delete the videos that she took of George Torres when he was in the suitcase and he was trapped. So she actually, she made this case really easy for investigators when they took her phone and they saw not one, but a couple videos that she took of George in the suitcase begging to be let out, where she's slurring her words. You can tell she's drinking. I mean, at one point, Dr. Dana, it really upset me. It really made me sad because you can hear George and he says, babe, he's trying to just connect with her saying, babe, just let me out. And I mean, her response, it's horrifying. She says things like, oh, this is for when you cheated on me. Or when he says, Sarah, she says, that's my name. Don't wear it out. And you can probably speak to this more because, she really is an immature child. An immature child who caused the death of another human being because of her narcissism, because she doesn't think that her actions have any consequences. And that's my opinion. That's my lay opinion on her. But when I say she drives me crazy, it really is because watching that trial, and I followed that trial, like you said, she really just had an answer for everything. But in my opinion, it was the wrong answer. She tried to justify everything. Nothing was her fault. She was perfect. She made it a point to say how she was almost a mother figure and she would try to make George do better in life because he drank too much, but she didn't. And it was a tough watch, let me tell you, man. And I cannot believe George Torres's family had to sit there throughout that. I think they actually left during her sentencing because it was so horrific. And I think we watched part of that when you and I were on together. But man, when she's like, I'm sorry for every time George did XYZ to me. If I was his family, I would have jumped across there and just been like, Urgh.
Yeah, that was hard to watch.
It was devastating.
Yeah, a lot of her in her apology was definitely not an apology. Her saying that she's a victim, bringing up this abuse. And I thought probably one of the most interesting things is that they were trying to use the battered, women's syndrome or battered person syndrome in the defense. What defense do you have? You got to try something. So there you go. But, was that accurate in her case at all? Because the evidence points towards that there were other domestic violence charges, and it was where she was the perpetrator. And interestingly enough, there was a strangulation attempt. So against her boyfriend. So typically we see the male as the perpetrator of strangulation, and you don't hear about it too often for a female to strangle someone or even a female to strangle their male partner. And that is such an insidious crime because you can really conceal the injuries or claim it was something else, some other injury, but you can, cause someone a loss of consciousness. And, that's how you can kill someone. And I have questions about how she got him in the suitcase and whether she did use strangulation.
I am under the impression, just through watching the trial, and I do believe this, they were drunk. She actually was like, oh, we were trying to be good, so we were drinking wine instead of hard liquor, like giant bottles of wine. I mean, yeah, you're so good. But no, I believe they were both drunk and they were playing hide and seek. They were playing games. She alleged a lot that they were big fans of making crafts and literally going back to being childlike. They did all these things together. So apparently they were joking around, and she said, wouldn't it be funny if you got in a suitcase? And he said, yeah. I have to think that he was very, very drunk. I am not sure if they did any kind of, toxicology report on George Torres. I'm not sure if they could get a BAC the next day. No idea, but I would be really interested to know what that is. Additionally, going back to some of the domestic violence, I was looking through a police report from 2018 when they both were charged with domestic violence. And it seemed to me that it was really unclear who started what, but they did have this history where Sarah would get George arrested. She would bail him out. But keep in mind, he was only 103 pounds. So think of how small that is for a man. I don't encounter that many men that are 103 pounds. And it might be really easy for her to strangle a neck that small, as well as get him into a suitcase and get him drunk, because who knows if he ate that day, So I think all of this stuff factors in. And clearly this is why she wasn't charged with first degree murder, because it wasn't premeditated. I mean, they had problems. They were violent towards each other. But again, Sarah she doesn't seem to think that the rules apply to her. She thinks she's above it. She doesn't seem to think that she has consequences.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because she's documenting her crime. It's, and I mean, eventually discusses her, she confesses, she talks about the reasons why she did it and her rationalization. But at some point, the rules, about murder, did she think she was going to get away with this?
I think she did. I really do. I really do. Or she thought that the police would just be like, "Oh yeah, we get it. You're fine. We get it. You don't have to go through all of the legal system issues. We're so sorry to inconvenience you here." She really thought that that's what would happen, I think.
So I have a clip to play. It's just a minute long here. You can listen to her tone, her word choice, her emotional responses, and let me know what you think. It's from the her clip on Crime Court TV. It's the interrogation where the police, she just starts saying, well, like she's drunk and
Okay. I've watched that.
Like I would not like do that, she said. Like, I know, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then she tries to get up and leave and she's being interrogated. And so she's really starting to reveal more about herself. And leading up to that, the investigators already have a lot of evidence. So they brought her in for questioning. And so people really give themselves away. Their reaction, their rationalization, their tone of voice, their body language. And you can hear that all in that interview.
Okay, you left him in a bag when he's begging you, saying, "I can't breathe, let me out," and you said, "F you." And you got up off the couch and went upstairs and left him in that bag.
Not intentionally.
Again,
I would never do that to George.
you did.
Not
It happened.
intentionally. Know that.
I don't.
Know that.
You got up and you went up to bed.
Alcohol is a thing. It's alcohol.
So
Not, again,
the reason that you killed him?
you all,
Please sit down.
listen to me.
Please sit down.
You all, listen. I did not intentionally kill him.
So your intention.
I don't know what it is I need to
punish
do
him?
or how to do it or what to say or how to say it.
But what was your intention?
Everyone knows. Everyone knows everything that I've done for George and love him and continuously helped him throughout his life with me and made him a happier, better person.
And everybody has their limits.
Everyone knows that.
Everybody has their limits.
So it's like, okay, so while we're in a good place right now, I'm going to snap? Is that what while we're in a good place right now?
You did.
Yes. Absolutely. I got you on video screaming, "F you."
This is what it feels like when you're choking me. This is what it feels like
Which
when
was
you're
however long
choking
ago.
me. You said
The
it.
video was from last night.
Clearly,
So it wasn't that.
inside you.
Yeah.
Yes. And I actually believe she called her ex-husband before she called the police. And it's been alleged or speculated, and again, pure speculation, that she most likely called him first because she wanted his help to either dispose of the suitcase, who knows? I mean, again, pure speculation. I have no proof of this, but I could see that happening.
Yeah. Hey, I need a little help with that. You know, there was another case, Heather Mack and her boyfriend Tommy in 2014. They bludgeoned Heather Mack's mom to death and packed her in a suitcase and called a taxi cab and loaded that suitcase up. There was blood dripping on the outside that caused alarm for the... Heather ended up getting 10 years, Tommy 18. And we can talk about the differences of why women sometimes might be sentenced less and your thoughts on that. Interestingly enough, she served 7 years, was released, and then was rearrested and pleaded guilty to conspiring to kill someone and is now serving 26 years.
Oh my gosh.
So that actually was another suitcase murder. And her defense at that time was that it was a very abusive relationship between the mother and daughter, and there was blown out fights, but in the end, she kills her, right? But we look at all those police reports leading up to that, and what does that tell us? Who was the perpetrator? Who was the victim? In a case like Sarah Boone, we're going to zoom in to those phone calls to 911. Who was reporting, who was calling, who had the injuries, what are they saying? And that really tells a story. And I always tell people, if you truly are a victim, report it, document your injuries, go to the hospital,
Yeah. And I think what's important and even what we're finding in the case of Diddy, Sean Combs, is even if there's no quote unquote tangible evidence, I think what some of these survivors have done, which really adds to their credibility and adds just to the truthfulness of what happened to them, is they have journal entries from when this alleged abuse was taking place. They documented it, and that just goes a long way.
It does. Yes. Those journal entries, it's all going to trial. So you've been covering Diddy also? You're covering everything.
Hard not to, right? It's hard not to. And I'm not even sure if it's news anymore when another civil suit drops, because listen, the civil suits are terrible. They are awful. And they all seem to corroborate each other, but I'm really waiting for his trial in May. I mean, I really believe that he does need to be behind bars if the allegations are true. And I think that because of Cassie Ventura and her bravery, and even what we've seen on video, that these are true. And Diddy came forward after that video and he apologized and he said, I'm a changed man. I went to rehab. I did this. I did that. And even his defense attorneys are stating that in court. He's a changed man. But then you have people coming out, survivors coming out and saying, oh, no, I have proof. This is what he did to me in 2021. Well, that's much later than 2016. So is he a changed man? I'm not sure. I wasn't there, but it would seem to me that he wasn't. And it's just, I think that now in 2025, we've seen this with Diddy, with Harvey Weinstein. I mean, the shoe is dropping here. And so it's going to be really hard for him to get out of this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you're locked up behind in jail, suddenly you're a changed man. Yeah, no. Not going to buy that.
You said it. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you're sorry you're there. You want to get out. They'll say anything to change public perception. And for people that are so powerful and have so much influence and money, they are used to being able to just change things up, right? And get away with all this. And I think just like we talk about Sarah Boone and just disbelief, like the rules don't apply to you. Like even if you got caught, still they don't apply because I'm so powerful, or no one, he's gotten away with it for so long. I mean, can you imagine everything he's done and then he's gotten away with it successfully? So he's sort of, I imagine in some state of denial that and he's in the same, correct me if I'm wrong, he's in the same correctional facility as Luigi Mangione.
Yes, they're in the same place. And it's interesting. I mean, Diddy apparently looks very bad right now. I just spoke to a journalist from Rolling Stone who was on my show, who was in federal court for his last hearing. And she said it was pretty alarming. She said that he was totally gray. He had lost a significant amount of weight. And she described the whole experience as being surreal, just to see this man who was once up here. And I would go as far to say he was a hip hop genius. He produced some of the greatest songs and he produced for some of the greatest artists of my generation. And so she said just to see him, he couldn't talk to his kids, but they were there. He would kind of turn around. He was shackled. He would smile at them. And she just said, it was surreal. And I feel like the defense kind of wants this for the trial, right? They want to make him look like this weak little poor guy, poor me, poor Sean Combs. And so it sounds like it's working there because yeah, he's not doing well.
Well, that certainly is one strategy, right?
Yeah, to get sympathy from the jury.
Well, we need to invoke some empathy because
Yeah.
we can't have him looking too good and like he's all happy and wearing the best suits. Like he's done that before, right?
Right. No, exactly.
So let's talk about another lawsuit that you've been covering as well. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. I just finally watched the movie a couple nights ago. It Ends With Us. Because I was like, okay, Dana, start with step one. Just watch the movie. Just step one. And then when you talk with Lauren, like have her give you the recap of what's going on. And so it was interesting just to watch the movie where they interact together. This is before the lawsuit. And now like we can never get to back to that point where it's interesting. There's these accusations going back and forth, and there's people have a strong opinion. They're taking sides. And there's all kinds of this evidence that's coming out now, and it's public. Mm-hmm. And they're suing for an insane amount of money. And who's right, who's wrong? And I always think about factors like, just like in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial where Dr. Curry gets on the stand and she did psychological testing, right, to determine the personality pathology. And that's where it gets really interesting, right? And I'm wondering at what point that may happen because, right? I mean, again, if we're really like, who's the victim, who's the perpetrator, there's some serious personality factors at play, right?
I don't know if this is ever going to go to trial, though. I think that the way it's looking now, they should settle it outside of court. I personally just don't think that Blake Lively thought it would get to this point. I really don't. I think that the lawsuit was meant to maybe scare him, maybe to drag his image after what she alleged that she went through. But just going back to the beginning here, the movie was released in August of 2024. It's based on Colleen Hoover's book, It Ends With Us. That sold 20 million copies. I mean, it was just really well received on social media. There was TikTok hashtags about it. So yeah, no wonder it became a movie. And it explores the themes of domestic violence, emotional abuse, and it's based on Colleen Hoover's own parents. And so she supposedly had this relationship with Justin Baldoni for a while, and he was going back and forth with her. And she said, I think you're the right guy to make this movie, because Justin Baldoni has a production company called Wayfarer Studios. And eventually she says, you know what? I think you're the right guy to play Ryle Kincaid. And Ryle Kincaid is the leading man in this movie, and he is the alleged abuser. And then we have Blake Lively, who then gets cast as Lily Bloom, and she's the leading lady, the one who makes the choice to escape domestic abuse. And her own parents, as you see in the movie, they had some problems. And so I believe that, Blake was their ticket to really selling this movie. So when it's released in August of 2024, there's some drama. There's some buzz that they unfollowed each other, Justin and Blake, on Instagram. And then you see that they're promoting the movie, but they're promoting it separately. And Justin's not with Blake at the opening premiere of the movie. And it just seems a little bit off. And then all of a sudden, we see these news articles dropping about how horrible Blake Lively is. And then she's being dragged for the way that she's promoting this movie. At one point, she says, get your friends and your florals and come and see this movie. And people are like, wait, is this a movie about domestic violence or is this just a rom-com? We're not sure. Her image, and I felt guilty. I felt like I was a part of this. I was making some TikToks and putting out content based on some of the negative press that I saw around Blake. I was, and I'm not a nasty person at all, but I will draw attention to it and say, wow, this is really uncomfortable. So a few months later, this lawsuit drops. Blake drops this lawsuit against Wayfarer Justin Baldoni, alleging sexual harassment. I mean, the lawsuit was horrendous. And she also accuses him of, I guess, concocting this smear campaign with a crisis PR company. He used the same crisis PR company as Johnny Depp, and it looked bad. But keep in mind, you can say whatever you want in allegations. You will not get sued unless it goes to court and these allegations are proven to be defamation. So technically, yeah, you can say whatever you want, but she had some email receipts and it looked bad. I felt horrible. I was like, oh my gosh, I totally bought into this whole PR trap. I'm so naive. How could I have done this? Well, Justin Baldoni then gets dropped by his agency, who also reps Blake and Ryan. In Blake's lawsuit, she says, other female cast and crew members felt the same way. And I don't know if she just expected him to sit there and roll over and take it, but he doesn't. And also, it's been alleged that somebody on her team, possibly Taylor Swift, talked to her friend at the New York Times, Ronan Farrow, who's responsible for the Me Too movement. He's like the Me Too father, and leaked this lawsuit and kind of got him to, I think it was, what's her name? Something Toohey. I'm drawing a blank. But she also Toohey worked with him on the Me Too movement. They won a Pulitzer Prize together. And she's the one who dropped this article just smearing Justin Baldoni. So then Justin Baldoni drops a lawsuit against the New York Times saying they don't have the context. And then he drops a lawsuit against Blake and Ryan. You can see it on his website. I believe it's lawsuitinfo.com. And that's when things really changed for me, Dr. Dana. He came out and he had answers and context for everything that Blake alleged. I'm not saying what some of the stuff she said wasn't true. I don't know. It wasn't there. But what he has showed us, I'm like, wow, okay, well, that's not true. She alleged at one point that he was just being inappropriate with her and kind of, he leaned too close to her during this one scene where they were improvising. And he said something like, oh, you smell so good. And he lingered. And then his lawyer, Brian Friedman, releases this video where it looks fine to me. They're ad-libbing, they're in character. At one point, he makes a comment about his nose and she kind of jokes with him like, yeah, you should probably get that fixed. She looked worse in that video than he did. She said that they would barge into her trailer while she was breastfeeding. He puts a text up that says, Blake said something like, I'm just pumping, but come in whenever you want. I mean, all of these different things. And it would take too long to go through all of it. But it just seems like Justin was in a really bad spot because Blake had an executive producer title and she started to really overstep it, if you will. She was rewriting pages. I don't know how some of this flies with the Writers Guild and some of their rules, but somehow it did. And then she wanted to be a part of the editing process. Then she actually commissioned someone to be her own editor. So Justin Baldoni here, I truly believe that he was just trying to manage all of this. And again, he was the director, the producer, the star of the movie as well. And she had him basically kicked out of the premiere. He was allowed to walk the carpet, but then he had to go wait in the basement. So, and there's just so much more, but I really do feel like it's so messy. And at this point, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it seems like Justin has a little bit more evidence, which would make him not exactly what Blake Lively has painted him to be. Now, could he be a douche? Probably. I don't know. I mean, he does seem to be like this feminist with a man bun. He's written books on toxic masculinity. I mean, whatever, give me a break. But yeah, I do feel like he might not be this bad of a guy that she's making him out to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it makes me, wow, thank you for that recap.
Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, I love it. I wanted all that. I wanted all the clip notes. Thank you.
Yeah, and I left so much out too because it would take forever. But yeah, so you kind of get it.
Yeah, so then it's like, what is really going on here? This is a lot for I always think about some of the personality dynamics, which makes me think of Blake and how it's playing out and what factors those might be. And, can someone move on or let this go? Or where do we go from here? It's so disruptive to someone's life. Is it one of these things where you have to be right? You have to be you have to have the final word. Like, can two people disagree or have two different opinions? And this is very extreme. So I would be very curious. Let's just say if it did go to trial, then you do have psychologists that do an evaluation and they can identify certain personality types, just like they did with Amber Heard. Did she have PTSD? Or just like with Sarah Boone, was she a victim? Was she a battered person? Or was it something else? And people, even if you don't test them, right, you just see their behaviors over time, they start coming out. Like Sarah Boone, I think everyone you could see there was some narcissistic traits. And one of the things that is interesting is people that are high in narcissism, they seem to categorize people into being certain characters, and they need you to sort of stay in that character. And when you fall short of that, they want to put you back into that position. You're kind of upsetting everything. They have it all kind of mapped out of who you should be in relation to them. You are this person to me, and if you fall out of line, they sometimes can lose their mind. And there's this struggle for power and control to put them back into that position or place where they want to put them at.
Right.
Literally pack them up in a suitcase and take them out the door.
And speaking of, I don't know if you saw this, but I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, I mentioned I live in New York City, or maybe I didn't mention that, but in the East River, by Governor's Island, they found a torso wrapped in a sleeping bag floating in a suitcase in the river. So now I know it's crazy, and there's not many details about that, but I mean, it's just God, where do you even start as law enforcement there?
Wait, this is happening right now? There's a torso in the river?
There was, yes. And not only that, I don't know why the news is so cryptic in New York lately, but there was also a Haitian real estate agent that was just found hogtied to off of a Queens highway near Bayside, Queens. Blunt force trauma to the head. Nobody knows how long he'd been there for. I believe he was reported missing on January 1st, but that's another crazy homicide that law enforcement has on their hands.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I wanted to come visit New York because I haven't been there. And so,
come on, I'm really selling it. Yeah, come on over.
you might end up being hogtied in the river or in a suitcase. But I'm in California and we've got a number of problems here, let me tell you. And then we have we're talking about the Florida woman, Sarah Boone. And last week I talked about a Florida surgeon who removed a wrong organ and his patient died, and there's a lawsuit. And
terrible. Awful.
Which we also sort of talked about the personality factors at play of how someone goes unchecked for so long, and how did they get away with this? How can they be in these positions of power for so long?
Right.
And yeah, there definitely are certain personality types. Histrionic personality traits isn't something we talked about, but people in Hollywood that are very sexualized or very showy or very attention seeking, or just that's how they get their needs met, being beautiful, it can be problematic, right? That's, people can start to use that to get their needs met, and it can eventually be a problem in your relationships. And that's what a personality disorder is, a number of ways that you're coping with things that turns out to be maladaptive. So I'm fascinated with how this will go with Blake Lively, and there may be reasons why you wouldn't want that to go to trial, because it is going to reveal so much more about yourself than maybe you were ever prepared to reveal. Like, we all have a personal side of ourselves. We all have things that we just wouldn't want to be on trial.
Well, I don't know if she anticipated that he would have all of this evidence. I mean, how could she not, though? He was the director. His production company made the movie. Of course, he has access to raw footage. And also, again, it's like your text messages are really going to be out there, and that could be very embarrassing. I mean, I feel like, just quickly jumping into Karen Read, after I watched that trial, and they basically, gosh, they disclosed all of these text messages that she, I guess, were exchanging with this ATF agent, Brian Higgins, and it was so cringy. I felt so just odd. And I was like, oh my gosh, imagine someone goes through my text messages. And it's just something that you're like, wow, I never thought about this. Yeah, it's weird. And so I've always taken this stance. I shouldn't say always, but now more than ever, I'm kind of like, don't text anything that you wouldn't want a judge to read out loud or maybe your family to see, because this sucks. So Blake Lively she might not want all of her text messages between, her and Justin Baldoni revealed.
No. And Karen Read did, she went on the internet and was Googling things. I think she was Googling like how long till someone.
No, that was Jennifer McCabe. That was, so when John didn't come home, Karen called two of his friends. She didn't even really know them that well. She had to get one of their numbers, Jen's number, from John's niece. And they went looking for John, and, they ended up finding him, or Karen spotted him first when he was lying in front of 34 Fairview. And it's really sad because, he died of blunt force trauma to the head and hypothermia, and he could have been saved if somebody would have found him lying there. But nobody saw him go into the house, into 34 Fairview, yet nobody saw him lying out in the colds. But they did see Karen outside, just sitting there with her light on, just waiting for him to go in the house. And so this whole thing doesn't make sense. But when she finally had a defense and they were able to subpoena certain phone records, they saw that this woman, Jen McCabe, allegedly Googled Hoss Long, it was a typo, how long to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m. And then she deleted the search. And now Jen and the state, they have their experts saying that that search was actually made between 6 and 7 a.m. And it was because when they found John's body, Karen said, Google how long to die in the cold. And so it's also interesting because a lot of, the state generally looks to Cellbrite for this data. But in this instance, they're saying, don't listen to Cellbrite. They're not correct. Our expert's correct. So the Karen Read trial, in my opinion, is hands down a battle of the experts, because nobody knows what the hell to make sense of anything here.
Wow. So is she guilty or innocent?
I mean, for me, I'm fine saying the way I feel. I do feel like it's a couple things. I think that they're charging her with murder, second-degree murder. That is such an overreach. This woman is not a murderer. You hear these vicious voicemails that she leaves him when he didn't come home. She called him over 50 times, and this is supposedly after she angrily ran him over with her car. The defense experts, and they weren't even the defense experts, they were the feds, crash reconstructionists, and they were doctors of physics. They kind of said that she would have had to have been a NASCAR driver to go from 0 to 40 miles an hour in 4 seconds to back over him and kill him. Wow. So, but again, this is what the defense is saying. So I think that this case there's so much reasonable doubt here that it's tough. The simple explanation would be, she accidentally hit him and ran over him. But following the trial, I'm just not so sure that happened.
Oh my gosh, you have the front row seat to the best cases. I'm honestly a little bit jealous, and I'm like, what? You are, I'm fascinated by it. So you're taking in all this information. So I'll have to keep calling you and getting together just so I can get the latest on all these cases. It's hard to keep up with all of them.
It's so hard. And I really do try to see both sides of everything, because if you don't, then, what's the point here? So again, Karen Read is a tough one, but I don't see how she's a murderer. I don't think that makes any sense. And I think that what they've done here, it's like Officer John O'Keefe, he's a police officer, and the investigation into his death was not good. It was not an investigation that you should do for one of your own, for one of your brothers in blue. So the whole thing has kind of been a disgrace here. And I think maybe that's another reason why they're really pushing this second trial. John deserves justice. Of course, his family deserves justice, but I'm not sure that this is the best way here. It's become a total spectacle.
Wow. It's heartbreaking. And
it is.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me an update on all those cases.
Sure.
My head is just spinning. So I know you do have to go here, but what should I go watch next? Because you've been involved in so many shows right now and podcasts. Like what do I need to watch? Tell people what we need to go watch for our next on our playlist here.
Well, I will be on a show called Crime Nation on the CW. And I covered this horrible case out of Kansas, the Kansas moms killings. And I have done numerous podcasts on that. You can look at my playlist on Pop Crime TV, but we'll be covering the case on that show. And it's unadjudicated still. So these women desperately need justice. And I think more people should know about that story.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love talking to you, and I can't wait to connect with you again.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. For episode details and merch, check out killerpsychologistpodcast.com. And for forensic services, you can book online at psychologydr.com. That's psychologydoctor.com.